everybody. How is it going? It is a busy spring summer day here. I know it's not officially summer, and I haven't even asked Stacy what it's like in Texas right now, but it's pretty warm here today. So I think most of you know Stacy Cross. Those of you who don't, we'll have her do a little intro, but she is our support specialist in the McDougall program for one more month, which is why now I can say it. It's taken me a year to be able to get to say it. This is the show where Stacy comes on and we're delighted. She usually has story time, but she is here to answer your starch solution questions. So your questions about Dr. McDougall's maybe starch solution. I know some people have questions about other things that Dr. McDougall does and says. You can ask your questions. If you're asking kind of super personal medical questions, she's not going to be able to answer that. She is a health professional and nurse, but there are some things she is going to advise you to talk to your own doctor about. But go ahead and ask questions that you might have. And Stacy, I'm going to go ahead and pass this over to you and let you do an intro and maybe talk a little bit about what is the starch solution and who is Dr. McDougall, as well as introducing yourself.
Sure, absolutely. Hi, everybody. I'm Stacy Cross. I am a support specialist and a registered nurse for the McDougall program. And I'm so delighted to be here with you. Let me just say real quickly, just in case you now feel in any way hesitant to ask questions, like medical questions, you can ask any question. Just know that I have no problem at all whatsoever saying I don't know or I can't answer that. So no problem. You can ask me anything and I'll just tell you if I don't have an answer for you. So I live in Texas. It is summer here. I keep saying that to my kids and they're like, no, June 21st. And I'm like, it's a million degrees outside. We're going to call it good. It's summer. It's very hot here. It's very humid here. The air quality is really bad right now in Central Texas. So that's kind of a bummer. Hopefully
is there a reason why?
Well, great question, because my mother-in-law and sister-in-law were educating me all about this morning because I was like, I don't understand this air quality situation. But apparently what it is when you have very, very high heat and high humidity, the ozone, I'm going to really screw this up. Okay, I'm going to try. Pollutants in the ozone get stuck. So it's literally like they cannot rise up out into the atmosphere. And so they get stuck down low where we are. And so it's not good for people and pets to be out in this quality of air. They educated me about this after I went for my run this morning and felt like I was going to die. And now I understand why, because it's not suitable to be breathed, apparently, the air out there right now. So whoops to that. So hopefully the humidity will lift. And also, let me just say, I apologize if I explained that horribly, and anyone out there is like a meteorologist or a climate expert, you can feel free to put in the comments the actual explanation if I really messed that up. That's just my understanding.
That helped me understand, because also a little light bulb went on, because literally I'm like, that's why we get those air quality reports in the summer. And all of a sudden all made, because I was like, why is the air quality bad now and not before? We pay attention to it during allergy season in the spring. And then I think, allergies are mostly gone. Why are things happening? So I think you did a delightful job.
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
I guess that's when
we just learned it.
Thick. When we say the
air is thick. Yeah.
Thick. Very thick here right now. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. But back to, I guess, the subject at hand, which is the starch solution. If you have never heard of the starch solution and you have no idea what we're talking about, first of all, welcome. Please stay and learn. But my number one recommendation for you would be to get your hands or your ears on a copy of the starch solution. The very first time that I was exposed to the starch solution, I listened to it on audiobook. And it was wonderful and life-changing. And the Starch Solution is a book by Dr. John McDougall, who has been in the plant-based lifestyle medicine world for over 40 years, treating patients with dietary intervention for chronic illnesses like diabetes, heart disease, autoimmune illnesses, even things like cancer, diabetes. And we've had a lot of success treating patients. We run a medically supervised 12-day online program that we run 5 times a year, sometimes 6. And we have one coming up in July. You guys, there are only a small handful of spots open left for the July program. And then the very last program of the year will be in October. So if you're thinking about it, now's the time to pounce, because there will not be many spots left in July. I bet you by the end of this week, we'll have to close July.
Oh, so wow. It seems like a long time from July and October being the only program. So are you doing less programs this year?
No, not at all. No, this is our typical schedule. So we typically do one in January, one in March, May, July, and October. And we have added occasionally, as needed. We've had programs in August. I want to say at one point we had one in November. It just depends on the demand. Although the demand has been very, very high this year, but I haven't heard rumblings quite yet about adding another program for this year. But they're just booking faster than they used to each program. So that's why I encourage people to really reach out if you're considering it. But yeah, it's really great. So the Starch Solution is based on the Starch Solution book by Dr. McDougall. And the general principles are that you eat a whole foods, plant-based diet centered on starch. So, many of us grew up with meat as the entree and a couple little sides and maybe a roll or a salad, something like that. And the idea now is that actually starch is your entree. So things like potatoes, rice, corn, quinoa, barley, oatmeal, pasta, bread, those are the center of your beans. Those are the center of your plate. And then you can have fruits and vegetables on the side for taste and variety. And that ultimately is a huge key to unlocking health, reversing disease, arresting the progression of diseases. And we've had a ton of success treating people by just teaching them the diet, teaching them lifestyle change, and getting people to be able to reduce and even eliminate some of their medications.
Yeah, it's awesome. And for those of you who don't know, we went through it in July of last year. Mm-hmm. And it's been really, really helpful to us, mm-hmm. and as has been Stacy. So first off, someone said they love your hairstyle today, Stacy. So I put that up, but you didn't get to see it.
Oh,
and
thanks.
Then Susan was saying, do we only have one more month of these videos with Stacy? Oh, no.
No way. I'm here forever until I get kicked out.
Yeah, which will be forever. So does that mean she's here forever? No, she comes on separately from the meetings we get with her as our support specialist. The McDougall Program has generously lent her to us so that they can answer some questions. And I think it's been really helpful for the community, and it's been really good to help bust a lot of myths as well. Because no matter who you are, if you're not immersed in the McDougall Program the way you are constantly, I think it is easy to hear things and misremember them. So one of the things too that may come under this is Elle Underwood is saying, it has a question, do all plant-based milks on the Starch Solution need to be kept to 10% like soy milk does, or can you have more than 10% with almond or oat milk? And here's what I'm putting this to what I remember. I've heard somewhere, keep soy to 10% of your diet. I heard in the Starch Solution. I'm not saying where. I could have heard it on a YouTube, out of a blogger's mouth. I could have heard it anywhere. But I think that, and you and I have talked about that before, because I felt like, well, that's pretty good. And we probably end up doing it about like that.
Well, and I think, if I remember correctly, for me, I remember that as while you're trying to release weight.
Okay. So first of all, there are a couple different little questions within that I'm not sure which direction to go, but I'm going to do my best. Okay. So first of all, soy milk and other plant milks are liquid calories. That's what it comes down to. So of course we want you looking for plant milks that don't have any added oil or animal products, number one, because that's the McDougall diet. But also we want you to limit your intake of plant milks. We don't want you drinking glasses of plant milk if you're trying to lose weight, because it's liquid calories that doesn't register satiety in the same way that solid food calories do in your body. So that's one thing. Okay. So just limit it, a little bit in your tea, a splash on your oatmeal, that kind of thing, not drinking plant milk by the glass. So that's what that is about plant milks. Soy and soy products like tofu, edamame beans, tempeh, and all soy derivatives, things made with soy. They are a higher in fat plant food. And so I think that maybe this person is asking about fat percentage. Should we be keeping our fat percentage at a level of 10% or less? You do not, if you're following the McDougall diet, you don't need to be counting your fat percentage. You don't need to be tracking that. Having said that, soy falls into a class of plant foods that we say just limit your intake, meaning don't eat soy for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Don't eat avocados for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, because they are higher in fat. They may stall or slow your weight loss. They may stall or slow the reversal of diabetes. Diabetes specifically is so related to fat. And so people who have diabetes, who are trying to reverse their diabetes or get off their medications, really want to keep it real nice and low in fat. How much? As little as possible. So, people who are diabetic specifically really want to limit or even potentially eliminate things like nuts, seeds, avocado, and soy while they're trying to bring their blood glucose down and reverse their diabetes. I hope that was the right direction to go with that.
I think that makes sense, and we'll see if there's any follow-up. Fergus has just jumped in between us. He's literally standing in between the two stools.
He needs in on this call here. Hi, Fergus.
Here you go, buddy.
Say hey to Stacy.
Say
hi. Sweetie. Oh, I love him. Hi, honey.
He's like, I think I should be interviewed. Well, and I think that one of the things that happens too is because obviously I agree with you about drinking all the plant milk, because I think a lot of times we don't count things that we drink as calories. I think it's just most people do, but those of us, you're not feeling full, so it must have not been very many calories and all things like that. And I think you will say, and we'll find out, is that obviously if you're cooking and things like that, you're going to cook with plant-based milk, and it's a little bit different making a soup with milk than it would be drinking a glass of soy milk. Would you feel that way?
Yes, to an extent. So the idea is, if it's part of a recipe, you're probably not getting very much of it in any individual serving. So it's just like, it's a like example would be if you're using cashews to make like a salad dressing. That is different from sitting there and eating cashews. You're going to be consuming far fewer calories and fat grams and all of that if it's just one part of a bigger recipe. So that's not to say that everybody should be using cashews or nuts to make dressings. I mean, we still want you to try to do that as rarely as possible if you're trying to lose weight or reverse disease and things like that. But yes, always, if it's part of a bigger recipe, you're going to be consuming fewer calories of that element that way than you would if you're just taking it straight.
That makes total sense. Sorry, Fergus is wanting the love fest, so you will probably see him for a while we're here.
Love it.
Marilyn was saying she made a fresh peach, had a fresh peach from the backyard in my huge bowl of oatmeal this morning.
Oh, nice.
And Marilyn lives in Louisiana, so she's suffering along with you, Stacy, in the early summer.
Swampy. Yes.
Yeah. TS is asking, regarding the McDougall soups that come in the cups, they seem to be very high in sodium. Do they have any lower sodium, or is there a way to use maybe part of the seasoning?
Absolutely. Yes. You can definitely use part of the seasoning or none of it. Also, the McDougall cups are not produced by us. So that company, McDougall Right Foods, was sold many, many years ago. And so they are made and produced by a different company now. And they've done a great job of keeping the integrity of the McDougall diet when they're creating their different soups and all the things they offer. But you will have to go onto their website and look at the nutritional information of what they offer to know the answers to those, because they're not us, believe it or not. Even though they bear our name, that we have no control over the ingredients. And dilution is a solution, to quote my dear buddy Jeff Novick. And so if something is too high in salt, yes, either use half of it, or you can dilute it with more water, more liquid, cooking liquids, to try to take in fewer milligrams of sodium per serving.
Okay, that sounds good. And a lot of times, actually, I did a class, and since you don't own them, I don't feel bad about saying this now, is I get my little ramen noodles from Costco. They're Lotus Food, and they're made with brown rice and millet. So they're great. They're compliant. I did a whole class on using them. So if you have some noodles like that, and also I think some of the super crappy brands, like that you might be getting 100 for $1, I think those might even be fried or something. There's definitely not okay, but these are just noodles that happen to be in a ramen shape, just so everybody knows. So that's something else you could look at. One of the things that I did, which I had never done before or had, evidently it's a thing. Have you had this whole like ramen salad thing? It's like a Midwest, like they crunch them up, toast them, and use them like croutons.
Yeah. My mother-in-law has made something like that in the past. It's been many, many years since I had it, but it was really good.
It was interesting. And Cheryl really likes to put crunchy things on her salad. And that was a nice way. But I was also thinking that you could toast up some of those and bring them with you on a trip or something to add a little extra heartiness if you had to eat out and eat a garden salad, which we know is never, potatoes would be great, but like these wouldn't require any refrigeration.
I would actually caution against that.
Really?
Because,
okay.
Yes, because in that form, they are a dry starch and very, very, very calorie dense. And because they're not expanded like we like pasta to be, the reason why pasta counts as a good weight loss food is because it's cooked and it expands and it's very waterful, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it increases the volume. And what happens is that it increases your satiety by pressing on stretch receptors in your stomach. When you don't cook pasta or you dry it back out completely and you make it crunchy, it's tiny. It's very small. You cannot eat enough of it for a reasonable number of calories to press on those stretch receptors. So while it may feel good in your mouth to have like a crunchy thing, it's not doing anything for you from a satiety standpoint. You really want to add things that have water and bulk and fiber. So beans, and you were mentioning like potatoes would be great, but they require refrigeration. No, they do not. If you're really just going from home to the restaurant, you just take
That's
them.
true.
Just take them with you. And beans, same. I mean, beans are canned. You could literally just open the can and dump it on
That's
your
true. And they have a lot of the packet ones now too that actually even have some flavors and stuff. Some of those may have oils in them, so read them very carefully. Or you could just, what I like about the packets is you can, if you get plain ones with no oil, you can even put your own seasoning. So like we bring balsamics with us, we bring spice blends with us, and so you could make something really quick and easy.
Yeah. So let's pause on that for a second, because I'm so glad you brought up the packets, because so one of the ones that we recommend that Heather uses a lot, so we tell people in the program about, is Santa Fe. So Santa Fe has this packet. It's like shiny gold-ish. And it's dry. It's like dehydrated beans. And then you cook or I guess you boil water and then you put the dehydrated beans in and they become refried beans. And they're delicious. It's wonderful. It is salted. So it's a little bit, you want to just watch it from a salt perspective. But it's great. It's a fantastic convenience item. But in much the same way as I'm talking about the ramen noodles and not wanting to take, uncooked ramen noodles and put that on your food, you do not want to take dehydrated beans because it's the same thing. So this is such a great illustration here about the difference with calorie density. What makes the difference? The exact same food, dry versus cooked with water, the calorie density is massively different. So I can't tell you exactly what the calorie density of dry beans are. I would guess they're somewhere in the neighborhood of like 1,500 calories per pound, whereas cooked beans with water would be more like 600 calories per pound. Huge difference. And those little dried beans, not that anybody would want to eat them that way. Maybe you would, I don't know. They will just never fill you up because they don't have the volume. They don't have that ability to like push on your stretch receptors and say, okay, we're full.
That makes sense too. Now, I'm wondering if you want to talk a little more about fat and insulin resistance.
Sure. Yes. So this is going to be a very quick and dirty explanation, but basically insulin resistance occurs when you have taken in excess dietary fat and it has been stored in your muscle cells for a rainy day. So when you take in excess dietary fat beyond, how many calories and fat you need for the day, you've taken in too much, which is so easy to do in the standard American diet. I mean, so easy. It's ridiculous. That fat gets stored for a rainy day. Your body is a survival machine. And so it stores fat so that on subsequent days, whenever you go into famine or run out of food to eat, your body has that stored fat to be used for fuel. Well, guess what? None of us are running into that situation. So it just keeps accumulating and accumulating, storing, more and more storing of fat in our intermyocellular cells. I almost got it right. I like intermyocellular. So what that means is it is your muscle cells. And the fat is stored inside the muscle cells. Okay, I'm going to use this bottle as an example. Okay, so if your cell is like this nice empty cell, this is very like basic. Okay, this is not that scientific, but the fat gets stored like that. So now the cell is full. Sorry, I just had this juice. The cell is full of fat. So insulin's job is to go into your bloodstream, pick up, it's a vehicle for blood glucose. So when you eat anything, right? Anything at all, fruit, beans, a donut, doesn't matter what it is, it's glucose. Glucose is your body's preferred natural fuel source. And so insulin's job is when you eat, your pancreas secretes insulin. Insulin runs down into your bloodstream as a vehicle, picks up the blood glucose, and is responsible for delivering it into your cells, your muscle cells, to be used and burned as energy, okay? But if your muscle cell is full of fat, that's fat, the insulin cannot get the cell to open up to put in glucose because there's no space. It's all globbed up with fat, okay? So that's insulin resistance. Your cells are resistant to receiving the insulin. And so it's like the insulin's knocking on the door and nobody's opening up. When you eat a very low-fat diet, low-fat, starch-centered, plant-based diet, that allows those cells to release that fat, let it go, burn it off, because you're not taking in a ton of fat. You're using the fat that's stored, okay? So you're eating that low-fat, starch-centered diet, suddenly the cell opens back up and the insulin can beautifully just get that glucose right in there to be used as energy. And then your fasting blood glucose and your blood glucose in general will go down over time as more and more fat gets released out of your cells. Now, I will say this. sometimes when people, especially if they've been eating a very low carb diet and they come over to this way of eating and they have pre-diabetes, insulin resistance, or diabetes, they will find that their fasting blood glucose temporarily increases when they first start this diet. That's because you're taking in more glucose, especially if you've come from a low carbohydrate diet where you weren't taking in very much glucose. Now all of our food contains glucose. That is not a bad thing, you guys. Again, glucose is your body's natural preferred fuel source. Glucose is what you want. You want glucose. You just want it in the form of potatoes and not donuts. Okay. So anyway, so when you switch to the McDougall diet, you may see a temporary rise in your blood glucose level until you begin to release the fat out of the cells, and then the insulin can scoop up that glucose and put it in your cells to be used as energy.
That's great. That's a really easy way to understand it. So I appreciate you dumbing it down for me.
And also important, it's important to know too that that process doesn't happen overnight. It takes a while. You didn't get all that fat on you overnight. It's going to take a while to get that off. The more that you release that fat, the better those numbers start to look.
I have one quick thing I want to say about that, Cheryl. Thank you for saying that. That's absolutely true. You have to be patient with the process because the body takes some time to heal itself. Think about all the decades we've spent abusing and hurting our body. We should expect it to take more than like 1 or 2 days to heal it, and that's okay. Now, on the flip side, some people see a very rapid recovery, especially younger people or people who have been insulin resistant or diabetic for a very short time. They will see their numbers switch like almost scary rapidly. That is why medical support and medical supervision, when you're making these changes, specifically if you're taking diabetes medication or blood thinners, or there's certain medications that when you adopt this diet, if your numbers change too rapidly, you could be in a very dangerous situation where your blood glucose gets too low. That is actually more worrisome than it getting too high. And so that's why we run the McDougall program, is so that we can provide that medical supervision throughout the course of the program to people who are on these very powerful, potent medications as their bodies begin to take care of and resolve the issue itself.
Awesome, and that's why we brought her in at the very last minute too, right? To get that. Okay, so 2 things, and you guys go ahead and ask questions. You guys are being quiet today. I don't know what to do. Dina was saying, I've been drinking a cup of soy milk, I'm assuming, most days for calcium. So it must be store-bought. Trying to increase calcium through whole plant foods. Also, tofu provides a good amount of calcium. So I'm wondering, maybe you could kind of address ways to get more calcium into your diet.
Mm-hmm. Well, quick and easy Google search will give you high in calcium plant foods, and there's lots of them. Greens are a big one, tofu, there's like chard, I think. Anyway, there's a lot, especially greens, that are high in calcium. However, when you eat this way, your concern for calcium is not as great, because the idea is that what happens when you're eating a lot of animal protein is that your system, your bloodstream, becomes very acidic from those animal proteins. So when you take that out, your body isn't having to fight as hard to get your pH regulated. One of the ways that your body fights to neutralize the pH of not neutralize, it's not neutral. We are a little bit acidic, but to regulate the pH of your blood when you're eating a lot of animal protein products is it leaches calcium out of your bones. That is how our bones, one way that our bones degrade over time is that in an effort to try to bring the pH more normal, when we eat animal products, the calcium is pulled out of the bones to be used for that purpose. And so if you're not having all these animal products that are so super duper hyper acidic to your system, your body doesn't rely on the calcium in your bones and it doesn't pull it out as much. So you don't need a bunch of calcium like you might if you don't have to go out of your way to get a ton of calcium like you might have been advised to if you've been diagnosed with osteoporosis or osteopenia from your doctor. Your doctor's probably like, oh my gosh, you need to be consuming so much calcium and so much vitamin D. And that's assuming that you're going to continue with your normal diet. Like I said, if you're taking out the animal products, the animal proteins, you're not losing that calcium that's stored in your bones as regularly. So it's not something that you need to worry a ton about if you're eating a starch-centered, whole foods, plant-based diet like what we promote.
Well, I think that's great. And we kind of have a two-part carbs are bad, like trying to convince other people that they're good. So Diana is saying that you don't have to throw down. You just have to help them.
I was excited. I was like, I got this one.
Well, you have all the tips here. She said, not quite sure how to explain it without seeming like it becomes an argument. And then Raven is also saying she struggles with that too, talking to people about carbs, especially with family. I just point out to them that my blood test results are showing the proof and they physically see the weight is coming off. But this is your expertise right here.
Yes. Yeah. So perfect, y'all. I love those answers, and I share that struggle. So I like to take a page from Dr. Doug Lyle's book here, where I just don't need to even try to convince anybody. The information is out there. If they really wanted to know, they can easily access it. What he says in his Getting Along Without Going Along lecture that he presents at the McDougall Program is he basically gives you this approach. Well, it seems to be working for me. Maybe it's not for everyone, but I feel amazing. My blood test results, just like someone said, are looking really good, and I'm happy. So for now, I'm going to keep following it. I promise you this. Nobody is looking to be convinced that carbs are good. No, they're just not. And they just don't believe. It's just, there are too many voices that are too loud out there in the world, unfortunately, that are saying carbs are bad. And so few that distinguish between, what are we even talking about when we say a carb? First of all, carbohydrate is a element within many, many, many foods. Okay. Foods are not a carb or a protein or a fat. They are a makeup of all of those things. And some of them are higher in carbohydrate, and some are higher in fats, and some are higher in protein. But all plant food contains protein. All plant food has fat. And yes, all plant food has carbohydrate. It just so happens that carbs, the foods that we would call carbs that are highest in carbohydrate and low in fat and lower in protein, happen to also be the most health promoting foods on the planet. So it really is a no-brainer. However, because of all of the misleading and miseducated information that has been placed out on the internet and how loud those particular voices are, it is very hard to convince people otherwise. So you are only responsible for yourself. In fact, right in this moment, I want to release your responsibility for other people's food-related decisions, okay? They get to choose just like you get to choose. If you don't want them giving you a hard time on your high-carb diet, you don't give them a hard time about their high-fat diet. You don't need to say anything about their high-protein diet. No, unless they directly ask you, Stacy, should I be eating all this meat? Well, you know what? If you ask me that question, I'll tell you the truth. But unless you ask me, it's not my business. You get to choose. And all the information is out there for you, just like it was for me. And so anyway, feel the released from convincing people, because most people are not at all open to convincing. So you'll just be wasting your breath.
Well, and then I never understand, because these same people that go on and on about, the carb thing, they understand that there's good fats and bad fats. So why can't they understand that there's good carbs and bad carbs? To me, it just doesn't make any sense why you can't make that correlation.
But that's the thing, and I think that's why Stacy is just said the thing everybody needs to hear, that I need you to hear at least, is that let other people eat what they want to eat. You eat what you want to eat, and it's not a battle you can win. So to me, there's some things that Stacy and I could talk about, and I might change my perspective. I might change my point of view as we have this conversation and I get more knowledge. But you know what's never going to change? I'm never going to eat meat, because I do it for health and I do it for moral reasons. For me personally, I'm not saying what you guys should decide to do. So even if it was healthier, I probably still wouldn't do it. But unless you feel like someone could come up to you and convince you to eat the opposite way of your eating, which I know everyone out there is going, no, of course not. We can't do the same thing to somebody else either, because now that is not to say at all that if someone says, hey, you're looking really good, I can see you're looking healthier, can you tell me about what you're doing? That is a door open for you to talk about things, which is not you just trying to be like the big bad wolf blowing down that brick house, right? Because they're going to be fine.
But also, when they open that door and you start to tell them what you're doing, please do not get down on yourself or get disappointed if they immediately shut down, because it happens more often than you think. Just know that if you lead by example, eventually they start to see things. We see my parents slowly noticing things in the world that are plant-based, which they're not buying them, but they're emailing us and saying, hey, did you know Aldi's has X? Which to me is a good sign, because they're looking at that stuff, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Let me share this real quickly. I am not like a famous person, okay? Like in the world at large. And in no way, shape, or form am I a celebrity or a famous person. However, I am visible, just like you guys are, Cheryl and Kathy. You are here on YouTube. Probably a lot of your family and friends know really exactly what you do. But I'm telling you guys, as much as my family and friends know that Stacy is on YouTube sometimes, and Stacy works for a very well-renowned program, and Stacy knows what she's talking about, I very rarely am asked for information about this. Very, very rarely. So that should demonstrate to you how very incredibly rare it is that people actually want to know. I have a very, very dear and close friend that I have known for decades who has had health struggles out the wazoo. This person knows exactly what I do. This person knows that I literally, with my own eyes and ears, witness disease reversal of the diseases that this person is suffering from every day at work. I see it every day. I know exactly what this person could do to get out from under the thumb of these diseases that this person has. And they will not hear it from me. They will not. And they love me, and we are very close. But I hope that demonstrates to you guys what the mindset of most people is. And I'm not trying to be like Debbie Downer, like nobody cares and everybody's doomed. No, just let it be. Instead of being sad and hopeless for other people, sit in the gratitude of knowing that, wow, against all odds, you ended up in the right place with the right philosophy, with a health promoting diet that is going to serve you well all of your life long. How grateful am I that I got there when so many others never will.
Yes.
And I love that. And while it's not a one-to-one, it's also a little bit of like people who go into AA, and not all alcoholics heal from their disease. Some do, right? And we all know from all of our TV and our after school specials that you can't make people stop doing things like that. And it's a very similar thing, because it's a lot about human behavior and being scared and all of that other stuff. But I do think, while it's generous of your spirit to want to share everything with other people, you've got to make sure you're taking care of yourself first,
Well said. Yes.
Okay, now we have a bunch of questions. I was like, come on, guys, give me some questions. So Annie says her triglycerides took a 100-point jump since last year. I've been losing weight, so it's likely that is likely the reason. However, how long before I think the number is a concern until it drops?
So it could potentially stay up and even continue to raise a little bit as long as you're losing weight. It will not be until you meet your goal weight, and that's not a guarantee. It's possible that it won't be until you meet your goal weight and stop losing weight that you'll see your triglycerides come back down. However, here's the deal. If you are eating a starch-centered diet, free of oils and animal products, and you're staying faithful and consistent to that diet, there's no way your heart disease markers are increasing because you're increasing in heart disease. There is another reason. It's not because your heart is getting worse. That never happens. Hear me. I almost never speak in absolutes. Okay.
It's true.
But it never happens that someone starts following a plant-based, whole foods, starch-centered, oil-free and animal product-free diet, and their heart gets worse from following that diet. It doesn't happen. So some of this is going to have to be you, Annie, like taking a minute, with your beautiful brain and common sense that you have, and go, obviously this is not because my heart disease is getting worse from switching from baby back ribs to beans. Like, there's no way that's the case. Okay. And so let the numbers fall where they may. I'm not going to freak out. I'm not going to wig out. I'm not going to decide to go keto. No, for the love of goodness, please don't. I'm going to stay the course. And then once I get to my goal weight and I stop the weight loss process, if I do not see a bounce back of my triglycerides, I'll follow up with my doctor and see if there's something else, maybe a hormonal imbalance, or oftentimes that can come with thyroid issues. So you may have an undiagnosed thyroid issue. I don't think you do. I think it's just from the weight loss, but that might be something to re-examine if you get to the end of your weight loss journey and you don't see it come back down.
Great. And she's following up, and she said, I hear you and felt the weight fall off my shoulders. Thank you for the certainty you said that with. I am all in with the whole food plant-based life.
Awesome. Annie. Good.
Okay.
So happy you asked.
Question is from Dina. What are your thoughts on having sweet potato nice cream after a meal made with sweet potato, vanilla, plant milk, and maybe a small amount of cacao powder in a small serving in a small teacup? Sounds like a half a cup to 3/4 of a cup serving.
I love it. Enjoy. Bon appetit. Do it.
You wouldn't, but with the new Ninja Creamy book coming up, everyone's like, I'm scared I'm gonna just get really fat, and it's like, well, if that's all you eat for 12 hours a day, that's probably gonna be an issue. But in general, so the new book, and I'll just talk about it for a minute, I'm sorry. It's the sweeteners are dates, and for a whole pint, which is 2 servings, 2 large servings, by the way. So you could make 4 small servings out of it. It uses maybe 4 or 5 dates for the whole thing. For me, someone else might put more, someone else might put less. And so I also then made some options where you can sweeten it with applesauce or sweeten it with pureed canned pears.
That's my favorite, is the pears.
It doesn't give it lets so I make a sorbet that's literally, and I do get the canned pears in juice and just puree it and use it like that. it makes about 2 pints. So it's pretty reasonable as far as all the things go. And then put fresh strawberries with it.
It's so good.
And that's it, right? And you can do that with any fruit. So I'm glad that someone asked the question and you talked about it, because I think, again, with anything that's kind of as dessert and sweet things, you're not supposed to be eating a quart of it.
Right. So let me speak to dessert for just a moment, okay? Because I know how I used to consume dessert, which was there's always room for dessert. Okay. It wasn't a matter of hunger. It was only my taste buds really required it. I want something sweet at the end of a meal. That is not how any of us, whether we're following the McDougall diet or not, should ideally be treating dessert, because dessert is still food. Okay. And dessert calories count. And so I would encourage everybody to consider, when you are going for something like that, is it because I just need a little sweet something on my taste buds? Because if that's the case, then it could be that just a little, one piece of frozen fruit or something would have done the trick. Don't sit down to a bowl of even frozen fruit, or anything, unless you're fueling your body. If it's just for your taste buds, just have a little tiny something just for your taste buds. But so anyway, all that to say, these desserts that you're making with a cremini, love it. I love it all. It should be treated as food, though. And the scale will show you what you can get away with. So if you're eating something that's made with sweet potatoes, cocoa powder, and vanilla plant milk, I think are the 3 ingredients she mentioned, and the scale is doing just as you hope, fabulous. If the scale is stopping moving or going in the wrong direction, those are the types of things you should be looking at. Not because that, nice cream is a problem or like a bad food, but because you have to ask yourself, am I eating this out of a habit for dessert, or am I eating this because I need a little more food and it's appropriate because I'm hungry? You know what I mean? It's just, you got to examine those things, but they're not bad in and of themselves. And those ingredients are plenty in line with the McDougall diet.
And one thing that's helpful because Cheryl would never eat a piece of frozen fruit. It's taken me years to get her to eat apples. Like, she's a very picky fruit eater. So a lot of times I can make some sorbets that are all fruit and get some fruit into her, which is kind of nice. But also, don't forget, for me, it's a good way too that when she wasn't eating greens, the green in my mint wasn't from green peas before. It was from kale and spinach and things like that. So I think there can be some special cases that it's kind of nice, but I do wholeheartedly agree with you too. You have to be mindful and deliberate in what you're choosing to eat, for sure.
Yeah, I don't, sometimes I'll go and get some extra rice or something later because I still feel a little hungry. But if I know she's going to spin up something, I don't go get that extra rice. I just kind of hold off and just have a little bit of whatever she spun up. And usually that just takes care of me right there, and then I'm fine.
And also there's almost always a carb, a healthy carb in those pints. So we're using a lot of white sweet potatoes. I do use some okara because I make my own soy milk. So there's lots of fiber and stuff. So I'm not trying to justify it away from not being a dessert, because it's still a dessert. But we are trying to put some thought into, it's not just like flavored air. We're trying to put some nutrients in there too to kind of take in. But
yeah, and I think one thing that's important in a conversation like this is to stop really and think very reasonably about this. Is the reason why we're overweight today, is it because we were eating too many mango sorbets, Whole Foods, sweet potato, nice cream? Probably not. Okay. So that's probably not the thing you need to be looking at first and foremost. If the scale's not moving, you need to be looking at, how often do I fall completely off the rails and go get French fries? Or how often am I eating, half a baguette or whatever? It's probably something else. But if you have, 5 to maybe 15, 20 pounds left to go, and you have these desserts in your diet, you may want to have them less frequently or in smaller quantities in order to get the scale moving again, if everything else is squeaky clean.
And I don't know if this happens with you, if you see this a lot, but I know it happens with us. A lot of times we pretty much blame the thing that's not really responsible. So
100%.
Like, we'll go out, so over birthdays, we went out more. And so both of us had these crazy thoughts, like knee-jerk reactions of what we should do. And it was not make sure we're going out to eat less. And so I wanted to frame it that way too, because of what you just said, because if you're like going, oh, I'm probably not eating perfectly. Oh, yeah, I bet if I tighten up this ice cream, that's going to do it. Because I think it is this knee-jerk, it's like some weird psychology, something that you don't just go, oh, yeah, I should stop doing the most obvious thing. It's like, no, there's this tiny little possibility. There was a study that happened yesterday that said if I look at green beans for 20 minutes before I eat, right? Like we go off into these crazy tangents.
Yes. Absolutely. I've used this example before here, and I know that this person listens to your show. So if you're listening, do not feel picked on. I just think it's like one of the best examples of what we're talking about here, which is the time that my patient showed up and was like, well, I looked up the sugar grams in sweet potatoes versus Yukon Gold potatoes, and sweet potatoes are so much higher. And I think that's why I'm not, losing the weight or whatever. And I was like, what did you do? No, that is not the reason. The reason is definitely not the natural sugar in your plant foods. The reason is because you're eating a lot of nuts, and it's like, obviously that's the reason, but you know what? And this is why I don't get frustrated with people. I see it exactly as you just mentioned. I see this all the time. And I don't sit there and think, wow, that person's super dumb, or what is their problem? No, because that's been me. It is me from time to time. You just get like amnesia about the obvious basic facts,
It's crazy. It's so crazy. Like, because it's easy for me to pick out if Cheryl's going, oh, I need to do these 17 things. I'm like, no, I think that is not
I'm really bad about it. Because I'll be looking at my blood sugar going, well, and
get a little obsessive. Like we had a meeting with Stacy and we had a plan. And I swear to you, 20 minutes later we were on a walk and it's like, she never talked to you. I'm going to do these 17, 50,000 things. I'm like, that is not what you agreed to this morning. But what I could do is, because I had taught myself down, which you can't always do. This one time I did. And I was like, my mind was caught up on something that was going on the web a lot. And it was just catching my attention. And I noticed that and I was like, oh, it's happening to me, which doesn't happen all the time, hardly all. And so because I just caught it with me, I caught it really easily with her, and I was able to go, I'm not picking on you. I understand you don't want to hear this, but I'm telling you the truth. So just let's try and open our mind for a minute. And sometimes you have to do that to yourself. It's like that door that doesn't want to open. You got to stick a whole chair in there for a minute and go, wait, because I think we all are trying to fix something. And sometimes it's not broken. We just have to do it longer.
Yes.
Right?
That right there was worth the price of admission. Sometimes nothing needs fixing. You just need to keep doing it longer. Yeah. Wow. So faithfulness and consistency to your plan is the key.
Yeah. And I tend to get amnesia, right? So
totally.
During birthday time.
ADHD. She has the portion the rest of us lost.
So, during the birthday time, I'm all frustrated because, I'm like, well, I don't understand because it's not like I was eating hamburgers and French fries. It's not like I was eating the same kind of thing we always eat. I just don't understand. And I mean, just because maybe we added one time out, I don't understand. But then I had amnesia about all the sweets that we had during that time period. Mm-hmm. All the treaty treats, because a vegan bakery opened.
Yes. And this is
and
the
so
danger
it was like, I'm going to go have a birthday treat. I'm going to go have a birthday treat. And then,
and the thing is that it's true. You kind of don't always remember all those things unless you're doing things very intentionally. And I'm saying that like I'm so sure that I would always be intentional, right? But that's completely not the truth. So that means when I'm super busy and trying to finish a book and I'm working 14 hours a day, I don't remember what I did. If I don't have food prepped, and that's one of the things we talked about with Stacy, because we were a little off track because I was working constantly. I'm like, let me bake those sweet potatoes. Those of you here in the beginning, I hadn't eaten yet, so I ate my big old Hannah yam while I was talking. You might have heard me smacking on it in the background. But like finding those few little things that when your mind does turn off. Because for me, the reason, there's lots of reasons. I shouldn't have chips in the house, tortilla chips. One is that I will eat them for meals. The reason why isn't that I'm like, oh my God, those are the most delicious things I've ever had. It's not that, oh, I just want this crunch. It's that I waited too long to eat. What can I put in my hand right now to eat? And I will eat.
And if there's not a sweet potato in there.
If there's a cooked sweet potato, literally, I took the skin off and I was just eating it cold. I'm good with that. So for me, that may not be what it is for you, but it's very helpful for me when I look at some foods that I know I don't want to have in the house, or that if they're in the house, they're an issue for me. And why, and what can I replace, and knowing or learning that it's because sometimes I wait too long to eat, and sometimes I wait too long to pee too, and I'm like, I'm going to finish this email. So I am that way, and knowing that helps me make a better decision on how to prepare. Instead of kind of going, I think sometimes we're like, oh, I'm going to change my whole personality so that I can do this better. And I'm like, I'm going to do the dumb thing. That maybe one day I won't. I don't do it every day, but probably at least once a week, I'm going to wait too long to eat.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes more.
You know what though? Yeah, it does happen. I mean, that's the thing. And I think people really get derailed because they expect this to be this perfect journey where they've got it all figured out and they know exactly what to do. So they just do it. And when the inevitable, unexpected craving or unexpected hunger or whatever comes up and they struggle, they're like, oh no, that's it. I failed. And I just tell people like, we're all failing our way to the finish line. There is no perfect journey happening over here at all. I did want to share, I do think that it's really good to come up with a stupid, simple, easy go-to for emergencies. I think everyone should have at least one food item in their pantry that they keep there at all times, that they know if their brain somehow gets switched off, they go to that item. And for me, that's instant mashed potatoes. I always have a couple boxes of those potato flakes, or the bag. The Bob's Red Mill is my favorite one, but sometimes I can't find it at the store. But instant mashed potatoes made without any dairy products or oil. They are out there. There's several different brands and varieties that you can find in a box or in a bag. And they take like zero time. All you have to do is heat up water and then mix in the potato flakes. I will tell you how I use these, and I'm not saying that this is how I promote their usage for every single person, but I'll tell you why they work well for me. I use them really primarily only in the case of emergencies, and I do not season them or spruce them up or make them fancy in any way, because they are meant to be an emergency food. They are meant to be when there's nothing in my stomach and I'm about to go crazy and I just need some sustenance, I'm going to eat these instant mashed potatoes. And the reason why I choose to eat them that way rather than making them fancy and putting gravy on them and all that stuff is because they are so good to me. I could very easily overeat them if I made them super fancy and delicious.
Okay.
But that's not their purpose in my home. Their purpose in my home is to be a Hail Mary emergency food when, heck is about to hit the fan and I don't want to eat a bunch of bad stuff.
I love that idea too, and I think it's really helpful to kind of have an emergency in your mind and what you do. Because it depends on how you work. There's probably at least 25% of people who work like me. Like, I set the next goal. And at the next goal, I can fill up my water, or I can go to the bathroom, or I can do this. But sometimes what was supposed to take 10 minutes takes 2 hours. Mm-hmm. Or sometimes
something pops in between there, and then you have to go attend to that.
Or you have to run off to work. So when we have stuff in the fridge that I can send with her to the office, makes a much better day than days that we don't have it. One of the things we keep for dinner emergencies is we get food delivered from First Seed Foods. It's an Indian whole food plant-based delivery service. They send out stuff once a month, and it's delicious. They even have a salt-free one, and honestly,
and that's my go-to when I need it.
We eat that at least once a week. Mm-hmm. And it's one of those days when you're like, you really need takeout as far as time, but you know that it's not going to fit in with your goals, and maybe you missed something, you didn't make that extra thing, you already ate everything from the freezer, then it's just magically in the freezer. And don't forget, because they are expensive. I love it. It's a treat that we give ourselves, but you can also make big pots of beans, big pots of dal, big pots of stews, and you can freeze those too. And I always try to freeze leftovers, even if there's a half a cup to 1 cup serving, especially if it's something that goes over a grain. Because in an emergency, and actually it's right here, I found a Super Cube knockoff. So 2 of these were $18, which is really good. And they stack up really nicely in the freezer. Okay.
Very nice. That's a great idea. Can I just say one quick more thing about that is I really like using those delivery services, those like frozen meals, for exactly that reason. One that I found in my grocery stores here, which I was just like blown away that this is in our regular grocery store. I'm not even talking about Whole Foods. I'm talking about just HEB, which is the regular grocery store around here, had forks over knives frozen entrees.
Yeah. I've been seeing them everywhere.
Yes. And they were all McDougall compliant. The ones that I bought from my grocery store, all 3 of the varieties were McDougall compliant. And now I have those in my freezer. And what's so funny is I've had them in my freezer forever and I haven't used them, but I've gone back to the instant potatoes like a million times since I bought these. And you would think that at some point I would go, wow, that's a way more delicious, enjoyable thing in the freezer. But I'm telling you, I literally go to the instant potatoes where there is like not a brain cell firing in my brain. Yeah. Like 0 brain cells.
It's muscle memory at that point for you. You just grab it, do it.
Exactly. Done. Yes. Yeah.
But it's beautiful because you've kind of trained that default part when you're not really thinking to do something. Yeah. And I think that's wonderful. Okay, now we have a bunch of questions.
Yay.
Okay, this is a question we're getting a lot, and I'm pretty sure I know what you're going to say. And also, just for everybody who is thinking more about protein, just so you get a little hint where this is going, I follow Dr. McDougall's Starch Solution, but we are going to have someone on who has protein powder in a Ninja Creamy pint. I'm not telling you should do it. I'm not telling you shouldn't. However, though I get emails every week about them. So Thursday we can have that conversation. And Dilly is saying, what do you think of the idea that a high protein diet protects muscle mass during weight loss?
Not necessary. No. So when you lose weight, you are going to lose some muscle mass. That is a natural order of things. You may lose some bone density because lighter people are not as hard on their bones. So the bones aren't as dense. Those are natural processes. I promise you, you will be better off and healthier with less body weight if you are overweight than you would have been if you had kept your super dense bones and all of the muscle mass and all of that stuff. your excess body fat and is contributing to disease, and also the risk of disease if you haven't been diagnosed yet with those diseases associated with overweight and obesity. So you don't need a high protein diet. Every plant food has protein in it. Also, I hear all the time from people who say, I just know when I need some more protein, so I just have more beans. I increase my bean intake or my lentil intake or my whole grain intake because I can feel it when I'm needing more protein. I love that. I love that. I love paying attention to your body's signals. What if you got it wrong? It doesn't matter. It's a whole plant food. Unless you have like a serious medical condition, like really, really bad end stage kidney disease that a doctor has told you you need to limit your protein intake. As long as you're eating whole plant foods, it'll be all right. The problem with high protein diets, and specifically with protein powders, protein shakes, and protein bars and things like that, is that what's happening is they are isolating out protein and concentrating it in levels that your body would never have ever naturally seen in the natural world. Do your kidneys know how to process 85 grams of protein at once? They do not. That never would have ever happened in the course of natural human history. And so you are taking a risk. Every time that you have concentrated protein, you're taking the risk that that's not going to harm your body. Protein molecules are big. And so when your kidneys are trying to filter protein, it can be damaging to your kidneys because those protein molecules are larger than the little holes in the filter of your kidneys. Okay. So I would just much rather get my protein from whole plant natural foods. And if you feel that you need more beans, great, so be it. Eat beans. Beans are self-limiting because once you get to a certain level of beans, your body says no in other ways. Okay. It speaks audibly to you. It says no more. Okay. So that's the beauty of whole natural plant foods, is they are self-limiting. You can only eat so many greens before you spend the whole day on the toilet. Okay.
Yes.
But that is not the case with these manufactured, man-made, highly processed, concentrated sources of protein. Your body's like, we got nothing. This is weird. What are we going to do? I don't know.
And let me tell everybody too that, there is in the book one protein recipe by Rose from the Plant Life Chose Us who's going to come in, but the base, we're changing out the whole food base. You can do silken tofu, you can do chickpeas, you can do other things too. So again, as always, because I'm a recipe developer and not a medical professional, I don't tell you what to do at all, but I try to give choices for all the people trying to do all the things. But I want to just reiterate why Stacy is on here too. Just because you see an option doesn't mean you have to take it. And you have to listen to your own body and do what it feels like, And while I know my friend Katya Gorbachova, who is a world-class power lifter, is going to do some things, make different choices than I do for very good and very different reasons, if I just ate what she ate, I'm not magically becoming a power lifter, right? And so just kind of keep that in mind too. And I know I feel like for you, it's probably a particularly interesting time in the world because now there are a few people who are like, oh, high protein, whole food, plant-based. And so it comes up a lot for me. I'm sure it comes up a lot for you. And thanks for being a good sport about it.
Of course. Always happy to answer.
And I've worked out with Katya, and
we tried to.
Yeah.
No, she was so kind to us.
She was so kind, but I'm telling you.
We were outside in July.
If I was 30 years younger, maybe, but.
But she'll whip me into shape one day. I feel good. No, she's actually a lovely coach, by the way. So Jamie says, does it matter if you eat oats at night and fruit at night, or is there a good time to eat certain food at a certain time of the day?
Does not move the needle in any substantial way, timing of your food and different food choices. So no. Does it make a difference in your blood glucose, your fasting blood glucose and things like that? It might, but not in any way that is of any consequence in the long run. So no, doesn't matter.
Okay, we're gonna rapid fire so we can get you out of here in time. Lizard greetings, which is just an awesome name. Do you think that 1 or 2 tablespoons of tahini is too much fat daily? I found an organic unhulled tahini that has a lot of calcium in a serving. Usually I use it on top of oats or in sauces.
You do not need that. But if you want to consume it, only the scale will be able to tell you what you can get away with consuming. I know that if I ate a couple tablespoons of tahini every day, I would probably see the scale start to creep up over time. But you run the experiment. Why not try? It's not harming you unless you're trying to reverse diabetes or lose weight, and those things are not happening with the tahini in.
Okay, that's a great thing. Here we go. Anne's asking, if the stomach is designed for a pound of food at a time, should meals be eaten a pound at a time?
No, do not weigh and measure your food. You eat when you are hungry and you stop when you are comfortably full, no matter how much it weighs. Don't do that.
Because that can change from day to day too.
Yeah.
Yep. And
some days we're really hungry. Some days we're not hungry at all.
Yep.
Okay, Diana saying, I'm always looking for something sweet after a meal. Would 1 date or 1 dried apricot be okay for that after dinner? Just 1, smiley face.
It's okay as long as you're happy with the rate of your weight loss. However, an even better choice would be a piece of fresh fruit or frozen fruit or canned fruit or jarred fruit that has not had the water removed from it, because it'll go a longer way and it'll be lower in calories.
Perfect. Oh, Susan is saying, we're so lucky to have each other and doing this together. I have no one in my life doing this except online people. And honestly, I think it's really good. And also, you know, we're married, so we bicker too. So sometimes you guys don't see all the bickering that we do. Are you sure you want that? Yes. Yes, I am. Right.
Sometimes, you know, I'll have a taste for something different than she'll have a taste for, but then, like, it's her kitchen, so, you know.
She says that like I don't keep food that's just for her.
She does, but, you know.
So, right, I just want everyone to know that I do not starve
I
Cheryl.
used to think that I got bored. I used to think that I got bored with food faster than her, but I think actually it's the complete opposite. I could eat the same thing for several days in a row for every meal. She cannot. She has to, like, she also can't, like, I can just eat plain rice with vegetables.
No, but see, no,
but she can't do that. She can't do, she has to put, like, some balsamic on there. She's got to put, you know, some spices on there.
She says that like I don't eat a plain white or Korean sweet potato.
But that's different because you said that tastes like cake to you.
Yeah, it does. It's delightful.
Doesn't taste like cake to me. It's icky to me. It's too sweet.
That's okay. You don't have to eat it. That's why they're all mine, because they're all so expensive. So I'm fine with that. I'll take the fancy, expensive potatoes. Let's see. Okay. I know I saw some other questions, and now that I'm looking through them, someone was talking about eating at a wedding in Spain. Do you have any? Yeah, I'm not sure where to go. Some people are giving her some suggestions. Deborah,
yeah, go ahead.
It's just snacking. I put a plate of watermelon chunks, English cucumber slices, and strawberries in the fridge every day for my need to eat something now when I've waited too long to eat. That's a perfect summer.
Yeah. I'll grab an apple, and that usually will tide me over until I can think clearer and figure out what I'm going to do lately.
Plus, that's very quick, instant blood sugar, which is what our brains need when they're powering down. So that's great.
Okay, I think we have one last question, and then we might be able, if you want to talk more, that is always welcome. Adeline says, is PB Fit no added ingredients, meaning no sugar, no salt, instead of nut butter, an acceptable substitution on this plan?
Yes. However, nuts are not anti-McDougall, and nut butters are not anti-McDougall. The limitations on nuts and nut butters are because they're very high in calorie density, and so they will slow or even stop your weight loss. PB Fit is that way also, although it is much lower in fat and I believe substantially lower in calories as well. So it is a better option, likely, than regular nut butters. It still can slow your weight loss if you're using enough of it. So just remember, when you're using something like PB Fit or peanut butter powder of any kind, that you're using it in condiment-like servings. You know, we're not eating it breakfast, lunch, and dinner, a couple tablespoons, because the calories still count. Calories still count. Okay. Even healthy calories still count. And it still is much higher in calorie density than other things, you know, like potatoes and that kind of deal.
And Delia is saying, when weight loss is stuck, do you recommend a food diary?
Yes, I do. Because so often we unintentionally delude ourselves into thinking we're right on track and we're right on plan and everything is going great, and why isn't it working? Well, there's usually something slipping in here and there that is causing the weight to be stuck. So yeah, I'm a big fan of food diaries. I'm a fan of food diaries. I will say I'm not as huge of a fan of like in fact, I am anti weighing and measuring your food. So when you keep a food diary, you don't need to start measuring everything. I would just eyeball it. Looks like about half a cup of hummus or whatever it is, and put that in your diary. Some people love to weigh. I've heard that there are people who love weighing their food because it gives them like a sense of control. That may be true, and I'm not saying that those people don't exist. I probably would tend to be that kind of person also, but I'll tell you the reason why I don't like it. I don't like it because whether you mean to or not, you're likely judging right and wrong when you're measuring things.
Yeah.
And that leads and feeds into a restriction mentality, which very quickly and easily leads to binging and just throwing the towel in completely. Because if you feel restricted, remember, your body is designed for survival. And so if you are sending signals to your brain that say, we're restricting, we're not eating, we're eating under our hunger drive because the measurement is right? And you get into that mode where you're eating under your hunger drive, eventually your brain will demand that you break your diet because it interprets that you're going to starve if you continue to do that.
That makes sense. And Mona just pointed out I had missed someone's question, so this one should be really interesting, actually. Lori Wooten says, I'm just coming off the dreaded keto diet for the past year. Ugh. Found you all and want to follow the Starch solution. Should I expect some weight gain from not eating carbs for so long?
Great question. First of all, give it a good 4 months. I mean, run an experiment. I'm so glad you're here, and you're going to see amazing, mind-blowing results. People always do. However, if you have been denying your body carbohydrates, which again is its natural preferred fuel source, you have likely depleted your glycogen stores. So glycogen is stored for a rainy day in your liver. Usually about 3 to 4 pounds of glycogen is stored by your body. And so when you went into ketosis, which by the way is an emergency state for the human body, it is when you're on the way to dying and your body's like, well, fine, let's go ahead and burn this other fuel instead of glucose, because glucose isn't available. Ketosis is an emergency state. You will have burned your emergency stores of glycogen. So you probably, if you did keto, you probably dropped 3 to 4 pounds in the first day or two. That is part of that process. And so if you do see the scale go up by about 3 to 4 pounds initially, do not freak out. That is you graciously replenishing your body's emergency fund of glycogen, which is step 1 to the healing of your body from the damage that's been done from doing the keto diet.
That's a great answer. Thank you so much for that information, because we almost never have anyone ask us anything about that. So I thought that was great.
Yeah.
Do you have any parting words? We need to get you off into your summer with your boys for the day.
Yeah. Well, while I'm saying this, I do want to make sure that everybody's questions are answered. So if you don't mind looking, just double checking to make sure I'm missing anybody. I did see something, and I want to say I'm sorry. I don't fully know what the conversation has been in the chat, so I apologize if I'm misinterpreting the conversation. But it sounded like somebody was talking about iodine supplementation. And I just want to tell you guys, it's so easy to get enough iodine daily. So easy if you just go and buy nori, sushi wraps. So easy. I buy them, I keep them in my pantry, and I eat them every day. I have 1 or 2 sheets of nori, which is my entire daily recommendation of iodine every day. It is much easier on your body if you get your the things that you need from whole plant sources rather than supplementation, rather than concentrated liquids or pills or things like that. Because when things are found in their whole plant form, they are processed by your body at a reasonable rate, along with fiber and other nutrients and things like that. And so those nori sheets are the whole plant food. They are seaweed, and they contain plenty of iodine. So if you're concerned about iodine, that's a great and very easy way to get it.
That's a great point too. And plus, I've been craving sushi again. So I make it at home.
Yes. Oh, we do too. So easy.
It's so cheap.
Yes.
And it's really not that, if you're not getting nori or sushi seaweed from Whole Foods, if you have an Asian market, and sometimes you can even get it at Walmart, significantly cheaper. And sometimes you can still find organic and cheaper.
Yes. Yes.
So.
Can I also just say, y'all, sushi is one of those things everybody's very intimidated. How do I make sushi at home? Oh my gosh, so many steps, so much stuff. My 13-year-old son, our second son, last week made an entire sushi dinner for our family of 6, all by himself. The whole thing, start to finish. So you can do it, and it's very easy. It takes a little bit of mental prep work and just obviously obtaining all the ingredients, but it's such an easy and wonderful and healthy meal. And of course, we're talking about, plant sushi, not fish,
of course,
based sushis. Yeah.
And there's some cool stuff you can do too. Like if you have a garden and you have some fresh tomatoes and maybe you left one a little longer, the skin will peel right off. That happens sometimes, and you can slice that and make it like tuna. Put a little bit of teriyaki on top, and that's just really kind of delightful too. Cheryl doesn't like seaweed.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm just checking out. I'm completely checking out.
I make her onigiri, so I make her little rice balls with stuff in the middle, or we do sushi bowls, because she will have nothing to do with nori. It tastes just like fish to her. She's not interested.
Yeah.
That's okay. You don't have to have it, you guys, and you're likely getting enough iodine from other sources. But if you're really concerned about iodine specifically, that is a really easy way to get it. Also, iodinized salt. I really hope I'm saying that correctly.
Yeah.
But everybody wants to buy these very fancy Himalayan, organic, whale pillow salt or whatever. It's like so unnecessary, because at the end of the day, it's still salt, which we all know we need to limit and be careful around. But you're much better off actually just getting Morton's iodinized salt, because it has the iodine added into it. And, at least then you're getting, if you are going to use salt, you do not have to. It'd be better to just go ahead and have the salt with the iodine added into it.
I also feel like, for me, the salt with the iodine in it, I use way less than the fancy salt.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
Yes. Yeah, I feel like the salt is somehow more available. Like I can taste it with smaller amounts. Probably because it's ground finer.
I was going to say it's because it's
Himalayan.
fine ground salt. Usually, even when I get like, I think Morton's kosher salt may be iodinized as well, but I'm not positive. So you check the box;
Yes.
it'll say on the box.
It is.
But a lot of times, like that, the big salt is meant to be
Finishing salt.
finishing salt. So you taste it, and
Yeah.
that way, like if you don't put as much salt in the meal, you still have. It's completely enjoyable. But and Dr.
Yeah.
McDougall talks about putting salt on top of your food and not in your food.
Correct. Yeah.
Christine says, how about sea seasonings like dulce
Granules.
granules, but I think I'm saying
Granules.
dulce wrong. How do you?
Dulce.
I think it's dulce. I think it's
Dulce?
dulce or dulce. I think it's dulce.
I have no idea.
I don't know. Doesn't
I've
matter.
said it a
Yes.
weird way in my head for 40 years.
Yeah, dulce is fine. I just like the seaweed, the nori sheets better. And can I just, I'm sorry, I just have to quote this person because I think they're so funny. Killwell goes, okay, but I get the pink one for vibes. I love it. The pink Himalayan salt for vibes. And then they go, also, I don't have a thyroid, LOL. I just love it. Yes. Sometimes you just need some good Himalayan vibes. I totally get it.
That's what's in there right
that
now,
case,
isn't it?
Yeah.
knock
And
yourself out.
I change things out, but like whatever salt we happen to have, I'm fine with. I also like, there's lots of sprinkles, and actually I'm not sure if the furikake from Trader Joe's has salt in it or not, but it's usually like some whole sesame seeds, different kinds of seaweed and stuff like that can be nice for just a little sprinkle over some things. But they have just like kelp, and like there's a whole bunch of different sea seasonings that can be kind of nice. I keep them for putting in my own particular crab cake and not Cheryl's crab cake because it can't be fishy for her.
I prefer
That's
not
so
to have the
funny.
crab cake at all.
Hey, Joseph, also, I just want to agree, Joseph, a little iodine goes a long way. I totally agree. In fact, I'll just say this here, you don't need to do it exactly like I do it, but the reason why I eat nori sheets is because I eat almost virtually no salt ever. That's a personal choice. I don't feel that I need it. I eat a lot of salt-free seasonings that I enjoy just as much as I did enjoy salt back in the day. That's why I use nori. If you use a little sprinkle of iodinized salt on your food every once in a while, you're probably good. You do not need a ton of iodine. Joseph, thank you for mentioning that.
Yeah, this has been a great conversation, and thank you, Stacy. I had misscheduled this to begin with, as some of you who got like 2 or 3 emails today know. And so that was my fault, just to take ownership. And Stacy, thank you for being so gracious and helping us correct my mistake. I appreciate it in you so much, really.
Always my pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having me. And thank you all for your fantastic questions and all the great conversation in the comments. And if you have any other questions that weren't answered or you forgot to ask, put them in the comments section, and I'll come in and check on that every few days and be happy to try to answer them for you.
And we appreciate that. Thanks for being such an awesome member of our community and helping educate us and make sure we're not getting onto that amnesia crazy thinking, because we need a little push sometimes.
Yep.
We all need it. Yes. Awesome.
Okay, guys, everybody, you go out, enjoy the rest of your day, have the very best time. Tomorrow, I go live twice. At 1 o'clock, I'm going to be at Eastern Standard Time live on Chef AJ. And then at 3 o'clock, I'm going to be live here with Rose from The Plant Life Chose Us. Then Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Vicki from Ann Arbor Kitchen is going to come on.
Yay, Vicki.
It's extravaganza this week. So just enjoy, and I'll see you guys later, okay? Everybody have a good day.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.